Thank you. Okay, good morning. And I'm telling you, we're missing you at Golden Manor. That's all I can say. We're missing you. Are you still required to do a project of some sort, a community project? They have expressed an interest, if you have not gotten yourselves all hooked up with a project yet, to have you do something there. So let me know. I'll be happy to be the supervising faculty. Okay. And with that in mind, for the distance learners, and for this class in the room as well, I'm going to give you my email address. One of the things that's nice about distance learning is that you can, at least in terms of a CD, as these folks are going to get a video CD or a DVD, is that you can, watch AM. One of the bad things is you don't have me there in the flesh to ask me questions. So my email is Saunders, SAUNDERS at uthsca.edu, UTHSCSA.edu. So I think that's important for people to have that. And I don't know, Tina, do you have like a blog or a faculty thing on the web in WebCT or Blackboard? For the Okay, that's good. So let me know if you want me to participate in that in some way for this class as well, and that'd be really good. Okay. Actually, before I show you this, I'm going to show you this one other silly thing here. It's not silly, but it's certainly interesting. Where is she? There she is. Okay. Now, this will come and go really quickly. It's a 15-second max video clip. And this talk is about elder abuse. So just think for a minute why I would show this clip other than the fact that it's kind of funny. Let's do it this way. Play in. Open with. There we go. Windows Media Player. Can hear the person filming laughing. Okay, why would I show that in a talk about elder abuse? He was honking at her. I mean, he obviously that wasn't elder abuse, but what was it? It was rude. It was disrespectful. She certainly was feisty, and he got what he deserved. And I don't want to know what happened because he was getting out of the car. But I do think that people who are intolerant and impatient and have anger issues are going to be more inclined to be abusive. And that's a guy who's got some potential for abuse. And it doesn't have to be physical. There's a lot of psychological abuse, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to that subject. I wanted to ask you, had I shown you the film Peach yet? Okay, well, I'm going to put this film on as well. It's, you've all seen Grease, right? Okay, the director of Grease, his name was Randall Kleiser. And what I'm going to show you is his graduation project from, I believe, UCLA Film School. And he won all sorts of awards for this video, and he was fortunate enough, for his very first film, to get some famous actors to actually act for him. One is Jeanette Nolan, who's an actress who was already in her 70s at the time, and let's see, Barbara Rush, William Schallert, and one of the young guys from My Three Sons. For those of you who are old enough to remember any of those people. But they're famous and they're good actors. It's also in the 70s, so You'll see from the hair and the clothing that that works, but sort of take yourself out of the realm of time and put it in the present, and it's very much applicable today. And when I did my geriatric fellowship in the early 80s, one of my requirements was to sit through this film. And it took me 3 times minimum to actually be able to sit through the film. I had to leave the room in tears 3 times before I could actually sit and watch the whole thing, still in tears. So I'll probably cry when we watch it, because I always cry when I watch it. But for those of you who have a geriatric relative in a nursing facility, this is the worst case scenario in a lot of ways. There's some good things in this film. There's some really horrible things in this film. I want you to think about the film in terms of what in it is abusive. Okay? What was good, what was bad, and take something away in terms of what would be a good thing to do to prevent some of this now that we know so much more than we used to about this kind of thing. Okay. It was originally in a reel-to-reel, and this year they came out with the DVD, and I have not yet played the DVD. I've been playing it off a video CD we made from the reel-to-reel. It was really bad, but this should be interesting. We'll see how good it is. And that was pretty good volume. Okay. Actually, I want to make sure I have the screensaver off. Good. Now, usually it starts automatically. Did it all by itself. How do you like them apples? Oh. These. And I thought I was so techno-savvy.
Oh, it looks like it's gonna rain. Dave, go back in and get the umbrella. Well, you're not gonna bring Raquel along.
Well, can't she come?
No.
Why not? You need someone along with comparable intellect.
Go on, Judy, please back inside.
Come on, Raquel. It might even snow.
I hope so. It's been a long time since we've had a white Christmas. Thank you, dear. Did you boys remember to close your upstairs windows?
Yes. Raquel?
Oh, well, we've got to turn around.
I'm only kidding. Oh, Jerry.
If a little word of art can make one heart a lighter, if a little song of art can make one flash a brighter, take our little bit of singing and set the echoes ringing.
You we all used to sing Christmas carols in the car together. I think you boys are too old for that sort of thing now.
I don't think I remember a word from any carol at all. But I'm sure Jerry does. Mary sings a song with a beautiful soprano voice.
Oh, my darling! Welcome home! You got here through those terrible snows. Everybody coming by the fire. Perfect. I loved it. I loved it. This is Michele. I hope you like the little today. Surprise. Now, forget the secret. You have to work hard and carry lots of wood tonight before you eat your supper. Oh, come on, darling, have a little bite.
Dad, did you turn up the heat? Yeah.
This weather must be quite a change for you, Greg.
Yeah.
Well, Merry Christmas to you. Get back to your little house there, you.
I think we should leave Mother there this time.
Oh, please. I want you boys to give me sleeping pills if I ever turn out like her.
Give you sleeping pills?
Yeah, just put the bottle beside my bed.
But Mother, that would cause a scandal in the family. I wish. Slipping farther.
Now, you won't recognize her. It's been 2 years since you've seen her. She's got blind since then.
It's so sad. Like these presents. All she can do is feel them.
You know, I can remember. But she used to cry at Christmas when she wasn't able to go out and buy presents for you boys. Now she doesn't know whether we're there or not.
What becomes of the things we give her? They're never there the next time we visit.
The nurses must take them.
Do you want me to ask?
No. No, don't do that.
Why not?
Well, they're nice to her, Greg. How would you like to change somebody's diapers for 8 years?
Has it been 8 years in that same room?
Yep.
What does she do all day?
She just sits. She has to be strapped up in a chair now. We took the TV away when she went blind.
Dad, can she chew?
I don't think she has a tooth left in her hand.
Dad?
No, I think so. I really don't know.
How long do you think she'll last?
I'm afraid this will probably be your last visit.
Here we are.
Now they tell me I can't get this decorated this year. Too hard to chew. Looks nice.
Come on, Mr. Weaver. Hello there. How are you? Hi. Good to see you again.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. I had 3 brothers.
Yeah, that's right, sure.
How are your grandchildren? I remember you telling us last time you have about 7? And all girls? Oh, that must make you very proud.
Howdy. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Mrs. Robinson. wanted to watch TV.
It's over 2 years and I have a good state.
And it's all ready. Won't you step this way, please? This way.
Lovely bachelorette lives in three very elderly.
That's my number one. What would you think of my trailer for a day with my hair and curly?
When you end the play.
Bachelor number two. If we could go anywhere in the world on a date, where would you choose?
My apartment, because it's the most romantic spot on earth.
Wow, who's here, Ethel?
Bachelor number three. What movie?
Have all the chairs in? Think there's enough?
People tell me I look like my character.
Oh, family's here this time, Peach. Damien and Jerry and John and even Greg has flown all the way from California.
How are you, Nana?
Oh, I'm fine. And you know who I am? No. You're kidding. Come on. What's my name? Sure, you remember, Doris. You were just talking to me about it the other day, remember? Have a nice visit. I don't know. Peach, I have a surprise for you. Let's see if you can tell what this is. Can you smell that, Peach? Isn't that lovely? Yeah. Can you smell it?
I see here you got a card from Elizabeth Beach. Do you remember her?
Huh?
I say, do you remember Elizabeth Zimmerman?
Yes.
June Gilchrist. Must be from the church.
Here's the one we sent her last year.
You all right, dear?
Yes.
How's your appetite been, Peach?
Good.
Good food around here?
Mm-hmm.
What time do you eat?
Should be now. Oh, Pete, I brought some homemade Christmas cookies. Would you like some? Mm-hmm. They're nice and soft.
Is that good, Nana?
Yes. Don't you look nice in your new dress? That color's just right for you. You know, Damon has been studying in Europe for a year. He was living right next to a palace.
They correct royalty to live.
Say, can you believe that Jerry graduates from high school this year? No. Yes, he's been accepted by Colgate for the fall term. Can you imagine all my babies out of the nest? No. Oh, so big. So big. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, would you like to touch that? Catch it. See? Oh, my. No. Is that? Yeah. You give Grandma a little bit, yeah?
We saw Mr. Weaver on the way in. Are you still friends with him?
Mm-hmm. Is he your boyfriend now? No. Are you going to get married again? No.
Well, boys, what other news do you have to tell your grandmother? Jerry?
I'm on the ski team this year. I'm competing in the ski meets.
He hasn't actually been in any ski meets yet, Nana.
No, but I'm going next week to practice.
It's going bye-bye. Hey, come back, music. Come back. Fast, 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 fast. Wind up. Wind up.
much about the things you've been doing.
Well, I've been out in California for 2 years. I've been studying painting. And when I go back, I'll have an exhibition of my work at a gallery.
What about you, Damien? Why don't you tell Peach what you've been doing?
Well, I've written a paper for my philosophy class that they're going to publish it in the university journal. I'll send you a copy when it comes out.
Would you like your Christmas presents, Peach?
Yes.
Jerry, could you just hand me the top one? What this could be? Oh, it's a nice box. Very attractive package, Peach. It's got red paper on the top and a green bow. Can you feel that?
Yes.
See? And now, that's the ribbon. You can just... Oops. He's got the bow off there. All right, I'll get the rest of it. It's tight, kind of tight. I have it just a second here. Let's see, there's a... Oh, look, it's a reindeer. It's a little reindeer, Pete. Can you feel that? Isn't that soft and smooth?
Yes.
Peach, I'm going to put this over here by the window. Yeah, that rain is really coming down. Hey, your little chipmunk friends are probably getting wet.
Probably so.
Remember that one that used to come around the cabin all the time?
Yes.
What was his name?
Scooter.
Scooter. He sure was tame.
Mm-hmm.
We have another present for you, Peach. Jerry, did you get that for me?
It's the rock.
This is a nice big one. I'll just open it up for you. You don't have to. This one's got a pretty red ribbon on it. There you are. Nice ribbon. Let's see, the inside here is it's a silk nightgown. Won't that be nice to wear? Feel that. It's very
Yeah.
It's a silk nightgown. So I'll just put this away for you, Pete. I remember this. You had this stool at your cabin, didn't you, Nana?
Yes.
You did the needlepoint yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I remember crawling up on this stool.
That was quite a while ago.
Are you sleepy, Peach?
Huh?
Are you sleepy?
No.
Here I come!
I teach 4-year-olds. For the Christmas program this year, I taught them to sing "A Christmas Tree" in German.
Can you imagine 4-year-olds singing O Tannenbaum? Peach? Well, I tell you, the nurses are preparing your Christmas dinner, and we have to get back and have ours. Are you hungry?
Yes.
It smells like turkey. Well, we have to go now. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Dad. Be good now.
I will. We'll see you next time, Pete. What are the cookies for the staff here?
See, I've got to give the nurses their Christmas check, too. I'll be right out. This is great. I know that somewhere inside there is the grandma I remember. Alive. Laughing. You know, I was sitting there. I was thinking back to one of my earliest memories. It was about you. And it was my birthday. And we celebrated up at your cabin at Mount Gretna. And it was warm. And you made a birthday cake. Do you remember that?
Yes.
You know another thing that sticks in my memory is that old puzzle box that you kept over the mantel. And you teach me how to work all the sliding doors on it to get to that secret drawer inside. And in the inside there was that little bear that when you pulled the string, the eyes popped out. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember.
And your own Victrola? I used to sit for hours and listen to those old 78s. Do you know you were the one that taught me to dance? And your old black coat. Remember, it used to creak and rumble every time we go for a ride. And we'd stop and get ice cream before dinner. Mom would have murdered you if she knew. Now, are you all right?
Remember Debbie Kreider? One time you took me over to babysit with her, and you made us homemade soup. We've been out playing in the snow.
Oh, my snow bunnies. Oh, you look so cold. Take off your wraps and let's get you warm. Nice and gentle. Oh, what is so frozen? So cold. Oh, how are you, darling? Oh, snow is too cold. Did you make a snowman? And runs through the streets to all she needs. She ever cries, hot eyes, hot eyes, hot eyes. Shall we turn the page? And now here it says, I had a little husband. Look, bigger than my thumb. Look how tiny he was. I remember.
The horror movies. When I was older, about like 7th grade, I guess, and I'd stay over your house, and we'd stay up late and we'd watch them on the Late Show. And at midnight, you used to cook us each a steak, and you let me drink wine, and you tell me naughty stories so I wouldn't get too scared. Your laugh would always make me happy. Do you remember?
I don't remember why.
Anna, what do you think about sitting here all day?
I think about going home. It'll be lonely there.
Well, you have friends here. You're not lonely here, are you?
No.
Anna, I gotta go. I just wanted you to know that my thoughts and my prayers are with you. And that I love you. Bye, Nana.
We wondered what had happened to you.
Guess I'll just,
Now that you've reduced us to tears.
we'll have a break. Okay, we have to have a recovery break. I almost got through it until he started to do his goodbyes. I got all the way till then. Usually I don't even make it that far. But you can see that that's like a classic and will probably always be a very, very good film because it illustrates a lot of things. So before we take the break, I do want to talk about some of the things in it first so that we don't have to come back to it after the break. Okay. What were some of the things that the family did wrong. What was the first thing they did that was wrong, way in the beginning of the film when they were leaving the house?
The way they're talking about her.
What did Jerry want to do?
To take the dog.
He wanted to take Raquel the dog. And they said, oh no. You know, there are nursing homes now that actually have animals that live there. Let's see, what's the one in particular I'm thinking of is Morningside Manor over on Babcock where it hits St. Cloud. They have a little white doggy and he's always in somebody's lap. And he lives there. There are other places that have visiting dogs. And the hospitals, actually, the VA hospital has a nursing home wing that's attached to it, and they have official dog visitors that are trained, and they go through this program to make sure they're not going to bite anybody. And we had a greyhound. Now, if you're sitting in a wheelchair, a greyhound is at the perfect height because you don't have to bend over to pet them. They're the sweetest dogs in the world. You can do anything to them. They don't bite, and we used to take our greyhound over there a lot. It's a nice thing to do. It's another project idea that's not dental, but hey, it's a good idea. What else did they do that wasn't cool?
They didn't hold her when they came in or greeted her with a kiss.
There was no touching.
Yeah.
When you think about it, when you are in the setting wherever you're going to be practicing when you graduate, there will be patients who will come in who perhaps will come from a nursing facility, or maybe you'll be going out to a facility. One of the things to think about is, when was the last time that that individual was touched in any way that wasn't clinical? And I think one of the things that's always nice to do, whether it's to squeeze an arm or a shoulder, and that's even with the big rough guys who, you know, aren't touchy-feely, and some other types of folks who aren't particularly affectionate. I think there's some kind of gesture that says I care without being obtrusive. And that's a good thing to do in the practice. What happened when they got to the facility with Mr. Weaver? He was the man in the wheelchair that they were talking to, having some socialization. He was talking to adults. And what did Mrs. Robinson, the nurse, do? She hauled him off to the TV. And what were they watching on the TV? The dating game. Oh boy, how appropriate was that? But what was he talking about that was oral? Meat. He said it'd been 2 years since he had a good steak because he couldn't chew it. And what did Greg say? Have they tried hamburger? Yeah. You will find, now even though, have you all read or looked at or gotten the data from the Surgeon General's report on oral health in America? Okay. So you know that the goal of NIDCR is to eventually reduce, through public health measures and good oral health care, edentialism to 10%. How many old people are we going to have in this country in another 20 years or so? It could be as high as 71 million or more. What's 10% of 71 million? 7.1 million people with no teeth. Okay? Yes?
In the movie, on the way to the nursing home, didn't the other guy, Greg, he asked his dad if she was chewing, and he said,
Can she chew? And he said, I don't know.
and they gave her the cookie,
Which was soft. That was a good thing.
but then it seemed like they were all surprised to see that she didn't have any teeth.
Right. I got a phone call recently from a former student who said that a relative that was in a nursing home, they went to visit and they realized for the first time this person had no teeth. How can you not know a relative doesn't have any teeth? But people don't think about it. They don't think about it. And I think so much of geriatrics And avoidance of abuse is really common sense, but it doesn't sort of extend past their everyday experience, so when they get there, they don't think about it in those terms. And okay, going back to Mr. Weaver, who couldn't chew it anymore, what kinds of things constitute abuse other than physical abuse and psychological abuse? Neglect. And there's such a thing called benign neglect. And all these families quite often are guilty of benign neglect. We have practitioners who are guilty of benign neglect. I've had oral surgeons call me and say, this nursing facility asked me to come out. This lady had 20 teeth left. They were just root tips. It was awful. She'd been through so much. I wasn't going to put her through anything else. And that's poor judgment, and that's benign neglect. Because if you're not going to let someone die from an infected toe, why should you let them die from an infected tooth? And on that, we're going to take a, how long a break do you like between?
10 minutes.
So we'll take a 10-minute break. Okay, everybody back. We're going to get started again and get into a little more detail about what constitutes elder abuse and some of the things that you need to be aware of. And of course, the first is that it's not any more common among any particular socioeconomic, racial, or religious group than any other. It's all pervasive throughout society. And we tend to think of stereotypical instances where it occurs and don't really realize that it's in all types of folks. So that means you have to maintain an index of suspicion for everybody. And the United States House of Representatives Select Committee on Aging actually defined it as the willful infliction of injury, unreasonable confinement, intimidation, or cruel punishment on an elderly person with resulting physical harm, pain, or mental anguish, or willful deprivation by a caretaker of goods or services needed to avoid physical harm or mental anguish or illness. That's quite a big definition, but you can see how neglect fits into that a lot. Prevalence and reporting rates. All right, we already know that there are about 1 million old folks out there who are victims of moderate to severe abuse. That's a lot. That number's increasing because that's data that's not like yesterday's data. So it's probably a lot more than that. And that it is a little bit less than child abuse, but that the reporting rate is half of the reporting rate for child abuse. Why do you think that is? It could happen because it's in a nursing home, and a lot of people, that's not a public area all the time. What else?
What about them being embarrassed?
Embarrassed to tell, or they can't even talk. That's right. Someone's had a stroke and happens to be aphasic, which means unable to speak. Okay, those are good reasons. Now, this is why it's so important for you to know about this topic, because physical trauma really is most commonly the head, neck, and the arms. So you get to see all this stuff, right? When you're treating somebody for a nice long time to really check them over well. And also because this thing is on the rise. We are going to see more and more people who are abused as we see more and more old people in this country. When you're looking at 71 million people, that's a lot of old folks. And other places that you might go, whether you go to nursing facility to deliver care or some other kind of assisted living facility or rehab facility, you may see it. And these are the categories of abuse and neglect. Physical, you know about. Sexual, you know about. Psychological, we mentioned. A lot of people forget about financial or material abuse or exploitation. And I had a video the Texas Department of Human Services, Adult Protective Services Division had given me for, oh gosh, a number of years ago, and they didn't put it on a DVD, and we tried to copy it and make a DVD out of it, and it just eventually died, which is a shame because they don't have it anymore. But it had a great episode on there. It had 3 different case studies of abuse, and the financial material abuse that they had was an older man who kind of lived in a shack, and once a month his relatives would show up to roll him for his Social Security check that they would steal. So, you know, it takes all kinds, and that's a biggie. I actually have, let me see, financial exploitation of the elderly. I have a paper that's on the AARP website, which I'm sure you could find. And it's a really, I just didn't want to make your handout too big, and it's all about keeping the wolves from grandma's door, financial exploitation of the elderly. And it's a speech given by a Sally Herm, it might be Hermy, Coordinator of Outreach and Service, AARP Financial Protection. And she gave this talk to the International Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse on World Elder Abuse Awareness Day at the United Nations. And it's a nice reference if you really want to go through and look at the different kinds of financial exploitation there is. How many of you know faculty members Carolyn and Tom Marshall over at the dental school? You haven't met them yet? Okay. Well, Carolyn and Tom, I guess about 15 years ago, took in a relative of theirs who was then 82. And she lived into her early 90s, but she had arthritis and she had some vision problems. So anytime she and Carolyn went somewhere, which was like every Saturday they went to North Star Mall, Carolyn knew where to drive to any store, where was the best place to park to get to the one Auntie wanted to go to on that particular Saturday. I never knew anybody who knew them all better because she really had to learn it so that it would be the least physically draining for her aunt to walk. And everywhere they went, and Auntie had to write a check, she would hand Carolyn her checkbook, and Carolyn would write the check, and you know, the eyebrow would go up on people because they'd look at her suspiciously. Is she stealing money from this woman? And so what you have to do is really judge when you're trying to determine if you think someone may or may not be abusing someone else. And of course, we did mention psychological neglect. What's psychological neglect? How does that differ from psychological abuse? Other than not getting someone psychological help when they need it.
Well, not stimulating, not talking to them, not allowing them to visit.
Social isolation. Very important. And another one would be, you know, giving someone peace of mind about things and holding conversations and what other kinds of things can you think about? That might be more examples of psychological neglect.
In the video when they were like, well, don't you remember, you don't remember me when the mother was doing that, would that be part of?
Well, when, for those of you who couldn't hear that comment, she was wondering if when Doris, the mother in the film, wasn't being remembered by Paige, and they were sort of pushing her about it. Well, they were trying to get her to remember. I'm not sure that qualifies as psychological abuse, but it does tell you that there's something going on with that woman's psychological state. Do you think she's depressed, Paige was depressed? One of the reasons would be what? Why? Other than the fact that there she is in a chair, what else? By herself, sitting in that room, though she probably comes out for meals because she knew Mr. Weaver was her friend. What else? Can't see her family. They don't visit maybe enough. Can't see. But, go ahead. They took, there you go. Hey, you can watch your favorite TV program without seeing it. You know what those soap opera stars look like. You know, you've been watching them for 40 years. So there's that. Why take the TV away? Maybe the news was really important to her. Obviously, she was a real personality. So what were they doing to her that was changing her personality other than depression? What else? Isolating her. What else was going on with her physically? What did she do when Greg was sitting with her? And what was happening with her mouth? That was later. What did she do with her tongue? She was doing this. She wasn't wetting her lips. She was doing this. Watch my mouth. That's called tardive dyskinesia. The reason people get tardive dyskinesia is because they're being put on a medication that is a chemical restraint. Haloperidol, okay, is one of the biggies that they use. And what it does is it's used to manage what? Behavior. It's used to manage behavior. They don't want a big personality in a nursing home. They don't want someone who's going to be demanding, right? Because what does it mean? More work for the staff, okay? Seeing it from the staff's point of view, it's understandable. From the patient's point of view, and within the context of a nursing home, they don't call them patients anymore, they call them residents, because the word is nursing home, not nursing hospital. They're not a patient, they're a resident. It's their home, it's where they live, which is why they are more encouraged now to bring things from home, like that wonderful coverlet she had on the bed, the step stool, those kinds of things. If those of you who had the experience of going over to Golden Manor, if you looked in any of the resident rooms, they had their furniture in there. You know, the only thing they didn't have was their own bed. But in 1987, a new nursing home law went into effect called OBRA 87. Well, it wasn't just nursing home law, but it was the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 87, which was trying to balance the budget, and somehow or other in there it got nursing home reform, and it was the most widespread version of nursing home reform to occur in 35 years, and it basically forbids chemical restraint and physical restraint in a nursing home without a prescription, a really, really good reason for it, and rechecking every 14 days to see if it's still needed and redoing that prescription. So you will find when you go to a really good nursing home that there are people who are sleeping on their mattress on the floor. Why? So they don't fall out of bed because they're not going to put the bars up. It's restraint. Isn't that great? Don't you love it? I think that's terrific. And it means more work for the staff. Oh, well. What else did she have when she was eating the cookie and Greg was looking at her and it was a sort of a top-down view? She had a catheter. Why? Because she had urinary incontinence. This is another area where they've decided it's abusive to catheterize someone and leave them in a catheter if they don't really need it, that there is actually now a whole field in bladder and bowel training where they can actually train folks to hold their urine better. And as a tip for those of you in the room, as younger people, if you hold it and hold it and hold it and hold it and wait and wait and wait and wait, you're more inclined to have incontinence when you're older. If you got to go, Go to the bathroom and go. Don't hold it all day. Don't ask me why. I don't know. It's not, I don't think that's stress incontinence, but it does happen. So that's an important thing to know. So there's less chemical restraint and less physical restraint. And we know that she was depressed. One of the things that happens if you're depressed and you're old, or it doesn't always happen but can happen, is it is a reversible, it can result in a reversible cognitive impairment. So maybe the fact that she didn't remember who Doris was completely related to the fact that she was depressed, not to mention she was probably on haloperidol. Okay. Those phenothiazines are not good things. Okay. That just gets us through psychological neglect. I personally believe that anyone who is not cognitively impaired, I'm not talking about the Alzheimer's patients who are really far gone and for whom it would not benefit, but almost everybody who's having to go into a nursing home, lose their home, whatever arrangement they had, and leave that, needs to have psychological counseling. And here in town, one of my colleagues, Dr. Karen Berkowitz, actually is a psychologist who goes to nursing homes. So that's kind of cool. Okay, physical neglect. There's self-neglect. Oh boy, here's another one. How many of you in this room are pack rats? Okay, the 4 of us, five of us, are more inclined to become demented when we get older. For some reason, pack ratting behavior, and that goes hand in hand in later life. Dr. Don Royal, who is a geriatrician, he's actually a geriatric psychiatrist at our health science center and at the VA, has been doing research in this area, and they're finding that people who hoard actually are more inclined to become demented later. And Don's a pack rat himself, so we're all divesting ourselves of all of our stuff right now so we don't look so bad. The more research that comes out. So isn't that interesting? So self-neglect, the kinds of things, one of the cases that they had on that great video from the Department of Adult Protective Services here in Texas was a case where you come into this home and there's junk everywhere. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know this story about the 2 brothers who lived in Chicago? And I don't remember if they were both in wheelchairs, but at least one of them was in a wheelchair. They never threw anything away. Never, ever, ever. They loved newspapers. They read and read and read all the time. To get through their house to the kitchen, you had to go through a tunnel that was floor to ceiling, practically, newspapers. And I mean, these people were phenomenal. Well, there's been lots of situations like that here in Texas as well, of course, everywhere, where people just hoard and they don't throw anything away. What are some of the reasons?
What about attachment? Did they get attached to those things?
Sometimes you get attached to. Some of us are very loyal to our things. We don't know why, but we are. Old cars, you know, we wait till they fall apart underneath us before we get a new one. It's happened. Frightening. Maybe they didn't have things when they grew up. I predict we are going to see a lot more hoarding of stuff for one very good brand new reason in San Antonio. Many of us, how many of you live in a house and not an apartment? Okay, a lot of you. How many of you have just received your 86-gallon recycling huge cart? Okay, some of us, it's coming your way. They're hitting all of the neighborhoods in the city. And the first thing, when they started to have the discussions about this in, I guess, the Chamber of Commerce or City Council or wherever, the first thing that came up was our older citizens are not going to be able to wheel this thing to the curb. I'll tell you, it gets heavy. And they're only going to be collecting it once a week, and your trash is going to drop to a once a week instead of a 2 times a week collection as well. So they're focusing all their money on recycling, which means when you're older, things get heavier if it stacks up for a whole week. And sometimes they forget to take the trash out. You get forgetful about the present, which is why reminiscence is so good. There's a whole reminiscence therapy that they do for older people who are depressed. That's excellent. You know, don't watch the the dating game. Put something on. We've got History Channel. You know, all these folks could be watching World War II stuff that they remember vividly. So there's a lot to be said for paying attention. And families, I appreciate the challenge that families who really do want to do the right thing and are extremely caring and are caring for an older relative, it's very challenging. How many of you are in the sandwich generation? You're taking care of older relatives and kids at the same time. That puts an incredible burden on a family like you would not believe, because you've got to attend to your kids and you have this relative who needs you at the same time, and you can only be torn so many different ways. And that sandwich person in the middle is the one who suffers the most, and it becomes very challenging, and so those folks need some psychological help as well. Okay, physical neglect, dental care. It's not just about not giving people medicines. Dental care is very important. And deprivation of civil rights. What's a civil right? Examples. You're violating my civil rights.
Free speech.
Free speech. Yes? Liberty. Freedom to move around freely. To do what you choose. Your autonomy. Good. Okay. Okay. Some examples of physical abuse that occur. Pushing, shaking, slapping, punching, kicking, and biting. So when you see an older person, you're definitely going to want to look for signs that some of those things have occurred. Choking, force feeding, burning, inappropriate use of physical or chemical restraints. We talked about the nursing home reform law. Or attacking with objects and weapons. Yeah. The only way you're going to be able to detect force feeding is if you're there to actually see it. You can suspect something if the anterior teeth are broken and they're not full of caries and the mouth's not really dry. But most likely you're not going to be able to pick it up. You might pick it up if they actually damage a tissue intraorally. So you could look for a row of fork tine marks or a sort of a dented kind of area from a spoon, something like that. But odds are you'll not be able to see it. But that's a super question. When we were talking about neglect before, this is the mouth of Sister Victorine. Sister Victorine was a nun here in San Antonio in a very nice nursing home for Incarnate Word nuns. And when it first opened, we went over there quite a bit. And this is clearly neglect. She was incapable of brushing her own teeth, and obviously none of the nursing staff cared to do it for her. This is extremely common. You go in the best nursing home and the worst nursing home, and the mouths are the same. Well, there's a little bit of good news. Part of that OBRA 87 law with nursing home reform actually got a dental piece in it, because for the first time in history we got evidence about the fact that people are dying in homes from oral neglect. We had a case, I believe, in Iowa, and another case in another state in the Midwest, where people died from septicemias. Okay, you know what septicemias are, okay? And for some bizarre reason, the medical examiner actually did an autopsy, which they really wouldn't ordinarily do in someone in a nursing home, because, you know, in past 10 years, those folks go in and we all think that's where they go to die, right? So, but for some reason, they did it, and they found the only nidus of infection was the mouth, the only place it could have originated. So that was some of the first things. Others were, we had people still being given their steak without it being blended after the dentures were taken off in the food tray and thrown out accidentally, or wherever they went, whether it was in the hospital before they got to the nursing home or in the nursing home itself. So they couldn't chew it anymore, and the dietitian wasn't told about it, and so there was no order to alter mechanically alter the diet. So people have choked to death on meat they couldn't chew, okay? That's another reason. And we were able to get into something called the minimum data set that was required by this new law that has to be filled out on every resident within 14 days of admission. Well, so there are all these nurses running around trying to do these oral screening, because there's a nutrition and oral section on this. And there's been no enforcement of the new law change that requires nursing homes to now be directly responsible for the dental care of its residents if that resident gets Medicare or Medicaid dollars to be in that facility. That's a lot of residents. So they have these forms that they fill out on everybody. Freak nurses out, because nurses don't know enough about oral care. So that's another great service you can do in the community, is to teach nurses to fill out the minimum data set. I have copies of it. I'd email it to you if you asked. And what's happened in the past year and a half is we have gotten the Healthcare Financing Administration, which is now called the Office of Medicare and Medicaid, no, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that's the new name, to begin to enforce the law nationally. So this is really incredible, because what the law required was every state has to deliver emergency dental care for its Medicaid residents. The nursing home can charge their Medicare residents an extra amount for emergency care. So that's all new. Is it happening? Not really, because most states it's not being enforced. Dental people don't know about it. Nursing homes don't know about it. They know more about it now, and a lot of states are in violation of the law. They have killed any Medicaid emergency dental benefit to nursing home residents. So there's all this violation going on, and here we are now beginning to enforce the law, and I'm actually training nursing home inspection teams. I've been up in the Panhandle and in West Texas so far. So that's huge. I had a woman who was the director of nursing at a nursing home in Brownsville call me, and I actually went down there. And part of the new law requires every nursing home must have an RN, not just an LVN, but an RN on duty for 8 consecutive hours every day. Well, that rendered Texas like 10,000 nurses short. So what they were doing is they're hauling all these retired RNs out of mothballs and sitting them in the nursing home office while the LVN who's been running the facility continues to still run the facility and do everything, but the RN's at least on site. And the LVN then is going back to school at the same time and trying to get the RN so that they can catch up. Well, this lovely, caring person had a 92-year-old gentleman in this nursing home who, as far as she was concerned, he couldn't talk, he had had a stroke, and was a severe aphasic, and so he couldn't say anything. But how do you know if somebody's hurting if they can't tell you? What do you have to do? You can look, but does that tell you if they're hurting? You have to elicit the pain and watch their expression. So you have to touch. Well, she didn't have to touch this guy. His neck was like this, okay? He clearly had a cellulitis. It clearly was oral. And she looked. And the law requires a physician to just say, this is a dental emergency, and then the nursing home calls a dentist who comes in and takes care of the resident, and then the nursing home pays the dentist, and then the nursing home files for the Medicaid dollars from the state to reimburse the nursing home, because the state says these dental offices don't know how to file for Medicaid reimbursement for old people. Forget this. We're not going to trust them to do it right. We're going to make the nursing homes do it, which was probably a good thing, except this woman got her physician to say, yes, it's an emergency, go ahead and get a dentist in. She went to her administrator and said, this guy's clearly got a dental emergency, and let's get somebody in here to take care of him. And they said, well, what if we don't get reimbursed? I think you better call the main office. So they called the main office, which was in Dallas, and because this was one of the chains. And by the time, and of course they got the main office and said, well, go ahead and get the okay from the state Medicaid office. By the time they got the okay back, he died from the septicemia. Okay, this is more evidence that we need to do better. So where we are now is we're starting to enforce the law, and where does the burden now fall? Besides on nursing homes calling people to come in, what happens next? What do we have to do? Are dentists and dental hygienists going to nursing homes? So we've gone from a place where there's been tremendous need and no demand to a place where there's demand and nobody wants to go and do the care. Why? We're not getting the money. Who's going to go and do free care? Well, the flying dentists do. They get in their little planes and they fly where? They fly to Mexico, but we have state dental laws. You can't fly from here to Western Appalachia and where there's like no dental people and give care in the United States if you're not licensed in that state. So that's one of the problems that we have, where people who really want to do some charitable work don't, because they have to do it within the context of the law. That's right. So that's a problem. Now, everybody does some. Everybody does some, but it's a whole lot easier to do it in your own office. Some patients really need to be seen on site and not in the dental office when you're talking about nursing home. And those would be demented people. How many of you have treated anybody with Alzheimer's disease? A lot of you have. Okay, so you know things like don't flash the light in their eyes. You know things like no sudden movements. Talk to them as if they understand every word you're saying, because your soothing voice is what they focus on. Soothing, everybody knows. And if you were to turn on your hand piece, you know, you're going to polish something, or do a prophy, you may get a whole body startle reaction where the arms flail like this and the tray goes across the room. So those are some of the kinds of things that you have to be careful about. And of course, within the context of dental practices, people are nervous. They want their emergency kits right there. They have all that stuff at the nursing home. Not only that, nurses know what to do. So it should be okay. It really should, to go into the facility. We have a long way to go. And now what I'm doing is not just telling the nursing home inspectors and having suddenly all this demand. Now I'm going around to dental groups, dental societies and dental hygiene societies, and letting folks know that if you have a patient of record and that patient changes residence and you don't see them, you refuse to see them without giving them the name of 2 or 3 other people who have already agreed to see them, it's patient abandonment. So we have a responsibility to follow our patients through the continuum of care once they leave their homes, to assisted living facilities or apartments, and eventually to nursing homes if that's where they end up. It's a responsibility, and we need to take it seriously. And somehow or other, we've got to solve the problem. Whether we start a foundation for dental care, which I think nursing homes could do with their resident families. They have cake bakes and stuff for United Way. Why not do it for their own residents for dental care? And that's where the social workers come into it. So I think there are lots of ideas that dental hygiene can contribute to oral care through projects in nursing facilities. That, everything from education to fundraising activities to enthusiasm to training the staff. Because if your own mouth looks like the pits, how likely are you to make sure that the patient or the resident you're caring for has a mouth that doesn't look like the pits, right? Okay. This is a nursing home resident with Alzheimer's, speaking of Alzheimer's. And everybody thought, oh, this is horrible and awful. Well, it's just stain. He smoked. All he needed was a good cleaning. It looked very good. He doesn't look too bad, but there he is after. Look at his teeth. They're all white and shiny. He was a happy guy. Okay, sexual abuse consists of these things: non-consensual sexual activity, unwanted sexual talk. We don't think about that in terms of actual abuse, but it is. Sexual jokes, labeling, unwanted touching, rape, fondling, and any inappropriate sexual activity. And every single year there is a scandal somewhere in these United States about some nursing home where residents have been raped in their 80s. It's ridiculous. They now have a part of the law to help cope and prevent that kind of thing, was that all nursing assistants now have to go through a registration and screening process where they go through the state licensure and inspection organization, whatever that is from state to state, where they actually run a check to make sure these people have not had prior instances where they've been accused or convicted of any of these things. They won't be hired. Psychological abuse, we've talked about a little bit. Threats, intimidation, provocation, trying to get someone angry, harassment, and ridicule. Withholding security and affection, remember you talked about that. Social isolation, social isolation. Infantilization, you don't think about that as psychological abuse, but what's an example of infantilization? Talking to them like they're a little kid. And how are we today? Don't go there. And it's all meant well. It's meant well, but it's wrong. Violation of rights. Okay. Physical neglect, food, clothing, shelter, medical care. I actually had to add dental care to this list. Mental health care, supervision, and withholding medicines. So that's important. Supervision, that's interesting to know. It's physical neglect. If you need to be supervised to do something like brush your teeth, because you can't remember how, and you need some coaching. Okay, leaving people alone for long periods of time. These are things you came up with. Denying access to community events. Social and physical isolation, no provision of companionship. One of the things we did with my dad came to live with me in, 1995, and lived with me for 9 years before he died. One of the first things we did for Dad, got him a dog, so he wasn't so alone. Boy, he was his best friend. Okay, we talked about financial, material, or other exploitation, unauthorized use of money, property, other assets or resources. I have a first cousin who has always been a little bit off mentally, and she has 2 rotten kids, and her father and mother, when they died, left her some beautiful art. Don't you know her kids stole her art? That's an example. Deceit, treachery, coercion, or intimidation to obtain any of those things. And they told her, we got you some new artwork, and put these nasty prints up on her wall. Change legal documents, forging signatures. You know, there's people going to court all the time for changing somebody else's will. Use of guardianship or power of attorney for personal gain. There was a big case here in town that made national news. A woman named Mrs. Glasser. And it was a case where she was from New Jersey and her husband died, and she was a multi-millionaire and was living in New Jersey. And her daughter got her to come live here, and there was this huge court case because they were doing things with her money. It was under guardianship. It was very difficult. And eventually she won her right to go, I don't remember if it was live with a relative in Florida or back to New Jersey, but she got out of Texas. I don't know if her money went with her, but she got out of Texas. Okay. We talked about deprivation of autonomy, failure to allow someone who is able to make their own decisions. So no matter how much we would like to force dental care on someone, if they say no, no is no. Their right to privacy. In the Peach film, when they were first coming in, they were walking down the hall, and there was a nurse, and she was fussing with somebody's robe or nightgown. The door was wide open, okay? That's abuse. Right to privacy, self-determination, worship. Families who won't take their relatives to their place of worship. Your right to vote. People who won't take you to vote. You know, some of these assisted living facilities and even the nursing homes where the residents are not cognitively impaired, they send buses to the polls with them. They go vote. And of course, it's your right, we talked about freedom from verbal, sexual, physical, or mental abuse. Participation in healthcare decisions, that's so big, and refusal of treatment, as well as inappropriate physical and chemical restraints. The things you're going to look for in your dental chair: bruises, welts, lacerations, fractures, burns, rope marks on a wrist. See something circumferential and red on a wrist, and it's wider than a bracelet, it's probably a rope mark. Okay. Bruises are a questionable thing because there are a lot of older people with heart conditions or who have recovered from stroke and they're on blood thinners. Somebody who's on heparin, you see a lot of bruising on their arms. So that kind of goes out the window. But if there are only 2, and they're round, and they're about that far apart, that's a pinch. Okay? So there are some things you can do and use your common sense to figure out what you're looking at. And everybody, I think, would pick up on what a burn looks like. Nice round cigarette burn. Bite marks. If an older person has a bite mark, where's it going to be? Arm, forearm, okay. Pinches, we talked about. Finger marks. Somebody grabbed somebody, but good. Belt buckles, cords, oh God. Laboratory radiological findings, when they look at these things, it takes those to determine if someone's had a medication overdose or underdose, or if they've got a venereal disease, or if they've got fractures anywhere. And things for you also to look for are malnutrition, dehydration, she says drinking her Coke, allergies, decubitus ulcers, and that's a biggie. There are lots, it's very hard for nursing staff to keep someone from getting a decubitus ulcer, because one of the things that happens to your skin as it gets older is it gets thinner and more friable and more delicate because the connective tissue layer thins underneath it, and we lose our elasticity, right? We go from having all these weird linkages in our fibrogen to cross linkages. So it's like going from water to ice, and it's more rigid, and it loses its elasticity, and it's just more delicate. So those are things that makes it harder for a nursing home to keep someone from getting a decubitus ulcer, because they have to keep turning them. In the hospital, they have to keep turning people. And sometimes there's just not enough staff to do it. Self-neglect, poor personal hygiene, whether it's self-perpetrated or neglect of a caregiver, and of course, not following through with what's prescribed. So, kinds of things you want to look at, we're going to finish up shortly, are the history, the medical history, your observations, and what kinds of risk factors might be there that would make a person prone to being a victim of abuse. So you look to see things like this person has a pattern of hopping from physician to physician, hospital to hospital, dental office to dental office. They wait forever before they get any kind of treatment, and there's a whole series of missed appointments in a row. Where, you know, maybe someone's really bruised and they're not coming in till the bruise heals. There's been a history of unexplained injuries that you've noticed, and that those injuries are inconsistent with what you said, what they said when you asked them, how did you get that? And they tell you a story and it makes no sense to you. And of course, previous reports of similar injuries. Also, if the person that you have in your dental chair is visibly afraid of the caregiver, they look at that, you ask them a question, then they're looking at the person because they don't want to get in trouble. Or you ask about an injury separately when they're not in the same room and you get a different story from both of them. Or you can obviously tell that the individual with them is neglectful and angry. Risk factors for this: mental illness, someone who's demented, whether it's the caregiver or the patient, whether there's drug or alcohol abuse in either, and whether they live together in close quarters, whether there's a family history of violence because it's perpetrated within families, and how isolated that patient is at home. Another, I hate not having this video, it kills me. Okay, this great video I've been telling you about from the Texas Department of Public Services that's defunct. Okay, there's a scene in here where there's an elderly woman in her home and her husband, and she's had the stroke, and she's not little, she's heavy, she's a big woman. And they are in close quarters. I think it's like a mobile home, and there's only steps to get out, so they don't get out much. And when they do get out, he's got to haul her down those steps and get her in the car, and you can see the abuse because she hits her head all the time when she gets in the car. Well, the Department of Health and Human Services had social workers come out, and they actually ran a ramp up there, and they taught him how to get her in and out of the tub better, safer. So his abuse improved. He still let her hit her head when she got in the car because he was very resentful, but it was improving. So there are things that they do try to do to help. And of course, if there's been the death of someone close to you that puts you at risk either to be abused or be an abuser, divorce, and financial loss. All of these things are extremely stressful experiences. So you want to make sure that the person you have that you're going to be asking questions about in your chair is not cognitively impaired, or you won't be able to get much information. So you want to look at that as well as their physical and functional status, what are their living arrangements, and all the things that you can find out that might influence them psychologically or emotionally. And observe family interactions, spend time if you can alone. You are the person that they spend the most conversation time with. Think about it. You update the medical history, you visit with them, right? When you're in a practice, the dentist just wants to get in and get out, get in and get out, and go from operatory to operatory. You're the one that spends the time, you're the one that's going to pick it up more than any other healthcare provider, and that includes other kinds of practitioners as well. Ophthalmologists, optometrists, podiatrists, you're the one who's going to be sitting there looking at them, okay? So abusers are usually a relative, but not always. 40% are spouses, half are children or grandchildren, and they've been taking care of that person for over 9 years. And there's a family history of abuse. So it's very, very common that abusers are children of abusers. And they're isolated, they're usually the black sheep of the family, or mentally or physically impaired themselves. They're just risk factors. It's not always applicable, obviously. A lot of them are already older. 75% are over 50. 20% of abusers are 70 or older, so they're spouses. And so what you need to do is educate, be suspicious, detect, report, intervene, and prevent. And it's hard to do that because we don't have access to victims the way we'd like. Caregivers often don't get the care that the resident or the patient needs. And it usually requires police, and people are reluctant to do that. So in addition, we've got ethical conflicts. Are we supposed to or not? Patient confided in me. We don't know what the state's reporting requirements are, and every state varies. So you have to find those things out. And we've already talked about this. Oh, and I forgot to mention hemorrhaging beneath the scalp. People get whacked upside the head a lot. So that's important to know. They get punched in the zygoma, the zygomatic arch. If you fall, you're going to hit your forehead, you're going to hit your chin, you're going to hit your nose. It's unusual for you to hit your cheekbone. Though in a really old person, their whole face turns purple, so you can't go by that sometimes. And of course, all of the bruising of edentulous ridges, if people are wearing their dentures and they get punched, those ridges will bruise. You'll see those serious contusions. And of course, eye injuries or orbital fractures from being punched in the eye. And so these are some of the things you have to look at. Are they on anticoagulants or constant aspirin or ibuprofen or something like that? Has there been a real accident, or is it abusive? And this is the most important thing for you to write down. 1-800-252-5400. You are required by law, if you suspect elder abuse, to report it. You are required by Texas law, okay? But you are also covered by the Good Samaritan law, which basically says you can't get in trouble for it if it turns out to be not abuse, all right? That's important to know. We want all of our residents to be happy people, and all of our patients and all of our elders, and have good dental care and not be neglected. So there's a lot of family education we have to do as well. Are there any questions? Okay, feel free to email me, and distance learners as well. Great, thanks. You're a good group.